Welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight, live from Buckingham Palace. Now, I asked the great British public earlier, is the £250 million cost of the coronation justified? We have the results, they are in, and 36.7% say it's not justified, but a healthy majority, 63.3%, say it absolutely is worth the money, and I couldn't agree. Now, with me is Ken Worth, who is the former bodyguard to Diana, Princess of Wales, and Harry and William when they were little uns, and I'm delighted now to welcome the highly respected historian and political commentator David Oldroyd-Bolt. David, lovely to have you here.
Thank you, Mark.
What will you be doing tomorrow for the big day?
Well, I'm glad to say I'll be having lunch with friends not far from here, and then going to watch the flypast, which God willing will happen at 2:30. Please, clouds go away. And enjoying the rest of the day, I think, in the way that we all should. It should be a day of feasting and celebration. It should be a day of jubilation. And frankly, anybody who's not doing that needs to get their head looked at a bit.
And a significant day in our history. You don't want to miss this one, because these coronations don't come around very often.
No, it's been 70 years since the last one. I find that there were a few more in the years before that, because monarchs tended to die younger and be a little closer together. But these are generally once in a generation, once in every 2 generation events, and God willing it will be the same now. If His Majesty has a lifespan of his father and mother and grandmother, then we can fully expect him to live and reign for a quarter of a century, which means that I will be practically a pensioner at that point, and you, my dear, will be in a bath chair.
But yeah, if I'm lucky, being fed by a nurse. Let's have a look at the significance of coronations over the years. I mean, have they always been this big a deal? Was it as big a deal in the 50s when the Queen was coronated into the crown?
I think when the Queen was crowned in the 50s, it was a huge deal because we were coming out of a total war of 6 years. We were still just in the grips of rationing. We had rationing for another year after the Queen was crowned in 53. And so it was an excuse for the nation to have a bit of a party, a bit of colour in life. Life was drab in those days. A great deal of the country was still bombed out after the Second World War. A great many people were living in extremely straitened circumstances. We did not enjoy the technological advantage we had now. So I think in those days they had the debate just as we are now. Is it justified in a time of quite straitened circumstances for a great many people to have this sort of celebration, this sort of grand national spectacle? And I think largely they came to the same conclusion that the country has now, based on your poll and others I've seen, that yes, it is. We don't get a new sovereign very often in our lives. Most of us may, in current trends, see 1 or 2. So this is not something that happens every 10 years. This is not something that we can just say, well, you know, we'll get another one soon, and so let's slim it back for now. This is something that I think is a matter of national pride. We ought to be celebrating on the scale we are.
Let's hope, as you say, with his good genetics, that Charles can be on the throne for a couple of decades. But has he got enough time to become a figure of historical importance? How long do you need as king to make a difference?
Well, I should say that His Majesty already is a figure of historical importance. He's served the longest apprenticeship of any Prince of Wales, or of any broadening a crown prince in history, during which time he's had an enormously advantageous effect on the country. Look at the work that the Prince's Trust and all of his other charities have done over these years, and the amount of good that has been achieved already. So I should say that even were the King's reign to be short, he should already be assured of a place in our history books. But given that he's also been so far ahead of the curve on the discussions we're now having, for instance, around the sort of housing we want in the country and the quantities we want, of the impact we have on our environment, the natural environment, of the sort of life we want culturally and spiritually, I think it's clear that the King, if he continues down the path he's set for himself as Prince of Wales, will be one of our more notable monarchs.
And of course, if things were to go south for the royal family, and I hope they don't, for the monarchy, it's not inconceivable that this could be the last coronation.
I think it rather is inconceivable, because the support for the younger generation of royals is more consistent, not necessarily higher, but more consistent even than it is for the King and Queen. We know that the Prince and Princess of Wales are very, very popular people across the range of ages. Now, of course, younger people are not so keen on the institution of monarchy, largely, I think, because it is something which most people grow into feeling great affection for. The longer they live, the more they see the good it does constitutionally, the more they see the benefits of it compared with other systems of government and other sorts of heads of state. I think the fonder people become of the institution of monarchy. So let's not forget the Prince of Wales is now a man entering early middle age, so he's not a young man anymore. He has plenty of time as he grows into middle age to build upon that support, and as the Prince and Princess of Wales' children themselves come to take greater roles in national life, as they will do under the King's plans for a slimmed-down monarchy, I think what we'll see is the nation growing with that family. Don't forget, we haven't really had that for a long time, because the Prince of Wales and the Princess of Wales, their generation is now, well, as I say, in middle age. So we haven't had a young generation of royals come through for now 30, 40 years. And I think, therefore, there's possibly a bit of a disjunct between the young of our own country that are 2 generations out. Now, with Prince George, Prince Louis and Princess Charlotte, you will see generations growing up together, and therefore I think we'll see a revivification, a rejuvenation of the affection for monarchy.
And to what extent, in terms of history, have coronations and the arrival of a new king or queen been a reboot for the country? Does history tell us that when there's a new incumbent in the palace behind us, that it gives the country a fillip, a refresh in some way?
I think it rather depends on the quality of the monarch who precedes. Now, we've just seen the most extraordinary reign in our nation's history, and a sovereign who was held in enormous esteem and respect across society. And so it is natural, therefore, that there'll be a slight wobble, I think, with His Majesty coming to the throne.
It's a bit like following Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United.
It's an extremely difficult act to follow. There have been previous instances, of course, when the monarch who preceded was so reviled and so useless that actually it was a great boost for the nation. We saw this with the Prince Regent, whose brother William IV came to the throne, and then even more with Queen Victoria acceding as an 18-year-old girl. We saw this great sense of a new start for the monarchy, or at least a new chapter in the long history of our monarchy. I think what's happening here is not so much of a transformation or a rebooting of the monarchy, it's just a sort of different view of it. This is, let's not forget, a man of 74 coming into a job at a time when most people have long since retired, or at least are considering a deep scaling back of their activities. So of course it's a different feeling. But I think we've already seen in the 8 months of His Majesty's reign that he's very, very good at the job, that he has a sure touch with the public. The affection in which His Majesty is held, and particularly that of the Queen, is growing, I think, by the week. Every poll that's done, they seem to be building more and more of that.
So you think he has the makings of a truly historic figure? I mean, you said
Yes.
he's already going to go down in history.
But as a monarch in his own right, I think it is very possible that he will be seen as a great king, because so much of what he has done to lay the groundwork of that in his long apprenticeship is already bearing fruit.
Was his apprenticeship too long?
No, I don't think you could possibly have too long an apprenticeship for such an onerous task. Is it a job that you or I would want?
I mean, has there been issue with old kings or queens in history?
Well, of course, but those are in the days when kings and queens were much more in control of the day-to-day running of the nation, because they had serious power to intervene in government or indeed to make decisions. And B, when they were surrounded by a group of courtiers who were afraid of their positions if ever they told truths. Now, we know that as Her Majesty grew older, she was given advice from her courtiers. She sought the advice of her family about when it was time for her to withdraw from doing so many public duties and for His current Majesty to step forwards. I've no doubt that that will continue to be the case, because this is now an extremely well-honed institution, one that runs smoothly and that has a great deal of collaboration between the generations.
David, we were so happy to have you coming down to the palace. What a brilliant overview you've just given us. Enjoy your lunch tomorrow. I'd love to be involved, frankly, but I didn't get an invite.
Join us for a drink afterwards.
I didn't get the memo. Look, we'll definitely do that. I'm always up for a quick drink. Listen, my thanks to David Oldroyd-Bolt.